I stood outside the black iron gates, my hands still clutching the crumpled wedding invitation. On the other side was music, flowers, the laughter of guests, my daughter's wedding. But I wasn't allowed in. I wasn't allowed to sit in the front row. My name wasn't on the seating chart. No one was there to greet me, even though I was the one who'd paid for everything, from the flowers hanging at the entrance to the 5-tiered wedding cake that I personally ordered. She had decided to cut me out of her big day. My name is Savannah. I'm a single mother. I've spent my whole life raising my daughter, with meager wages, meals I sacrificed for her, and sleepless nights filled with worry. But maybe I was wrong. I didn't cry. Not then. Because I didn't want anyone to see a mother silently wiping away tears on the sidelines of her daughter's happiness. But inside me, it was like a mirror shattering. Tiny cracks. Then a silent explosion into fragments. This isn't a story just to complain, nor is it to seek pity. This is the journey of a woman who once lived for everyone else. If you've ever stood on the sidelines of a celebration where you should have been, at the center, if you've ever sacrificed everything only to be forgotten. I stood there in front of the Coastal Grand Hotel, Savannah, Georgia, under the scorching June sun. I'd spent 3 hours doing my hair that morning, 3 hours pretending that this day would be as special for me as it was for them. The teal silk dress I was wearing, carefully chosen to look elegant on my daughter's big day, was now sticking to my back with sweat. My hand tightened around my old leather purse, the one I'd been using for 10 years, the truth being that I never dared spend money on myself. In the other hand, the crumpled wedding invitation, the gold-edged paper now smeared with ink from my tight grip. I had imagined myself walking through these gates, being greeted with a smile, sitting in the front row, watching my daughter, Lily, walk down the aisle. But no. A security guard, tall and dressed in a black suit, held up his hand to stop me. "I'm sorry, ma'am," he said, his voice monotonous, as if he'd repeated the same phrase dozens of times that day. "Only those on the guest list are allowed in." I was stunned. My heart pounded as if trying to escape my chest. "The list?" I repeated, my voice trembling. "I'm the mother of the bride, Savannah Bennett. My name has to be on it." The security guard checked the list on his iPad, swiping his finger across the screen, then shaking his head. "No, ma'am, I'm sorry. Can you contact someone inside to confirm?" I felt the blood rush to my face, burning hot. Contact who? My daughter? The child I'd raised for 27 years, from the days it was just the two of us in a cramped apartment, living on the cheapest ramen noodles from the supermarket, and promises that things would get better. I took out my phone, my hands shaking so badly, I almost dropped it. I called Lily. 1 ring, 2 rings, no answer. I texted, "Lily, I'm at the gate. They say I'm not on the list. What's going on?" A minute passed, then 2. Finally, the phone vibrated. A text message. I opened it and each word stabbed at my heart. "Mom, don't ruin my big day." Ruin? The word echoed in my head, leaving me numb. She didn't apologize, didn't explain, didn't invite me in. She just wanted me to disappear. On the other side of the gate, I saw a completely different world. The outdoor terrace of the Coastal Grand Hotel was decorated like a fairy tale garden. Tables were covered with white silk tablecloths, soft violin music played, and the laughter of guests filled the air. Through the large glass windows of the hotel, I saw bouquets of white roses hanging on the archway. I paid for all of it. I remembered the day I sat with Lily at the bakery, choosing the pink wedding cake with vanilla buttercream and meticulously hand-painted flowers. I'd signed a check for $12,000 as a deposit for this hotel, even though it meant cutting into my retirement savings. But now I stood here, outside, like a stranger, and then I saw her, Lily, in her magnificent wedding dress, smiling radiantly next to the groom's mother, Mrs. Margaret. She was wearing a sparkling sequin dress, her face glowing with satisfaction, letting her kiss her cheek as if she had raised her for the past 27 years, and as if she was the one paying for everything, the one who had planned the whole party. Something ached inside. Margaret didn't know how many sleepless nights I'd worked at the hospital, cleaning floors to pay for Lily's tuition. She didn't know I'd sold my wedding ring, the last memento and most valuable possession, to put down a deposit for this wedding. But Lily knew, and she still chose to leave me standing here blocked by a stranger. I wanted to scream. I wanted to smash the glass doors, run inside, and ask Lily, "Why are you doing this to me? What did I do wrong?" But I didn't. I stood there taking deep breaths, trying to keep my shoulders from shaking. I didn't want anyone to see a mother breaking down on the sidelines of her daughter's happiness. I lowered my head, my gaze falling on my silver 2-inch heels, the shoes I'd hesitated to buy, as a small gift to myself after years of saving every penny to make ends meet. When I tried them on, I thought, at least on that day, I should look like a part of the party. Now a thin layer of dust covered the shiny silver leather, imprinted with the rough asphalt under my feet, and I realized my self-respect was being trampled on in the same way. In that moment, a memory flooded back. Lily, 6 years old, hugging me tightly after a long day of work at the cafe. I could still smell the grease in my hair, but she didn't care. She snuggled into me, whispering, "I love you the most in the world." I'd believed those words as a promise that my love would be enough to overcome any hardship. But now, standing in front of this gate, I realized that promise was one-sided. Lily was no longer that little girl, and I, perhaps, was no longer her only love. I turned back to the security guard. He avoided my gaze, as if he knew he was witnessing a silent pain. "I'll go," I said, my voice trembling but firm. I walked slowly toward my old car, feeling the sun burn on my shoulders. I didn't cry, not then. But inside me, it was like a mirror shattering, each sharp fragment piercing my heart. I didn't know what hurt more, being rejected by my daughter, or the fact that I had spent my whole life loving someone who now saw me as an obstacle. Sometimes, the people we love the most are the ones who hurt us the deepest, not because they're evil, but because they forget how much we've sacrificed. Standing in front of that gate, I learned that love can't force recognition, but that doesn't mean I have to accept being forgotten. As I opened the car door, the music from the hotel still drifted out, a reminder of where I didn't belong. I sat in the driver's seat, gripped the steering wheel, and looked in the rear-view mirror. My face was tired, but in my eyes I saw a small spark, a determination igniting. Through the glass windows of the Coastal Grand Hotel, I heard Lily's father-in-law, Mr. Robert, give a speech, his voice echoing through the speakers. "To our beloved son James and his perfect new wife, Lily." From the other side of the gate, her father-in-law continued. "When James was a little boy, he used to tell us that he dreamed of a fairy tale life, an ideal partner, a home filled with laughter and a happy ending. And today, son, you have it all." Applause erupted, loud and unanimous, as if everyone agreed that this day was perfect. I felt my breath catch in my throat. That man, he wasn't there when Lily was little. He never saw me diligently tending to her when she had a high fever all night. He never saw me withdraw all my savings just to buy her ballet shoes for her first performance. He never witnessed me quietly sewing up every hem of her school uniform so Lily wouldn't feel different from her friends. But today, at the most important moment of her life, they were rewriting the story, and I had been erased from the first page. I remembered my skin was tanned and wrinkled at that time, freckled, my fingers trembling slightly. Then it was Lily's mother-in-law's turn. Her voice was saccharine sweet, as if she had practiced it in front of the mirror for hours. "We are so grateful that so many people who love Lily and James are here today to share our joy with our family, and we are also so happy to welcome Lily. She has truly become a second daughter in this family." More applause. A second daughter. Not a word about me. Not a word about the woman who raised Lily into the woman they were celebrating today. Not a thank you, Savannah, for everything you have done over the years. Not a "this day would not have been possible without you." Nothing. I bit down hard on my inner cheek until I could taste the metallic tang of blood. My feet ached in front of that iron gate. Then came the part I had been looking forward to and fidgeting about all morning. The bride's speech, my own daughter's. Lily stepped up to the microphone. She was as radiant as the crystal lights on the ceiling of the wedding hall. Straight, posture, firm voice, bright eyes. The exquisite wedding dress hugged her figure, the dress that I had to work 6 consecutive weekends to have the money to deposit. I witnessed Lily's first cry in the crowded delivery room of a public hospital. Now she stands there, taller, farther away, as if she were a completely different person. "I just want to thank everyone for coming today," Lily began. "I feel so lucky. James, you are the one who has made me the happiest woman in the world. And to your family, thank you for welcoming me as one of your own. I feel like I'm home." My throat tightened. "And to everyone who has contributed to making this special day, thank you. This is the best day of our lives." My name was not mentioned at all. I paid for the venue, catering, photographer, band, tablecloths, embossed nameplates, even the LED sign that read, "The future is forever," that was now shining brightly behind them. I even paid the final installment for the dress she was wearing. But the cruelest thing was not the silence, but the lies. I knew Lily had told them, to her friends, to her in-laws, that I couldn't come due to health reasons. I heard a guest whisper to the person next to her, "Poor thing, the bride's mother is reportedly in the hospital." Lily had disowned me, as if I didn't exist. I looked down at my hands, placed on the steering wheel, my fingers trembling slightly. These hands had worked non-stop since my ex-husband, Richard, left me and Lily when she was only 3 years old, running off with his mistress and leaving me with a pile of bills and a broken heart. I remembered the days when I worked as a waitress at a roadside cafe, the smell of grease soaking into my hair, then running straight to the hospital to clean every floor of the toilet until 2 a.m. There were nights when I only slept for 4 hours, my feet so swollen that I couldn't wear shoes. But I still smiled at Lily, saying, "Mom is okay, honey. As long as you are healthy and study hard, Mom will take care of everything." Lily grew up with increasing demands, and I always tried not to let her feel inferior to her friends, even if it meant I had to bear it all. When Lily was 8 years old, she pointed to a pair of Nike sneakers in the store, her eyes shining as if she had just discovered a treasure. "Mom, I have to have these. All my friends have them." I looked down. At the price, $90, almost half of my weekly salary. And the worst thing was that morning, I had slipped while mopping the floor at the hospital, spraining my ankle and tearing a large patch of skin on my knee. My colleagues told me to see a doctor, but I knew it well. The cost of medicine, the cost of x-rays, how could I afford it? I stood in the middle of the store, my feet throbbing with pain, my hands still aching from the fall, but I bent down to tie Lily's shoelaces for her to try on. I took a long breath, forcing a smile. "We don't have much money, honey, but Mom will buy these shoes for you. Just don't feel different, okay?" That weekend, I took an extra shift at the laundry. Standing for hours by the ironing machine, the heat hitting my wound made my skin burn with constant pain. Every time I bent down to pick up clothes, the scratch on my knee would bleed, sticking to the old protective clothing I was wearing. Sometimes I had to bite my lip so I wouldn't scream. I should have rested. But I chose the shoes and when I put it on the table in front of Lily, she cheered as if she had received a birthday present. I smiled, hiding my bloody hands behind my back, not letting her see me wince every time I walked. When Lily entered the University of Georgia, tuition was the biggest burden. I cut back on all personal expenses, not buying new clothes for 5 years, not eating out, not taking vacations. I remember when Lily called home, her voice excited. "Mom, I need another $500 for books and club fees. Please send it right away. I don't want to be late compared to my friends." I looked at the bank account with only $200 left, but still borrowed from my colleagues to send to her. "Mom will manage Lily," I said. "You just focus on studying, don't worry. Mom won't let you lack anything." I was proud when Lily graduated, but she didn't invite me on stage to take pictures. She just texted, "It's so crowded today, Mom." A short line, as if all the nights I stayed up were only worth that. But nothing hurt me as much as when I sold my wedding ring. Not because I still regretted that marriage, but because that ring was the only thing left from a time when I was a wife, someone who was chosen by someone. The only memento from my failed marriage to Richard, a thin gold ring with a tiny stone. I had kept it in my jewelry box for 20 years, as a reminder of what I had overcome. But when Lily got engaged and wanted a grand wedding at Coastal Grand, I knew I didn't have enough money. I stood at the jewelry store, my hands shaking as I handed the ring to the owner. He looked at me asking, "Are you sure? This has sentimental value." I nodded even though my eyes were stinging. Give her a perfect day, I told myself, even though tears were falling as I drove home. I sacrificed my last memory so Lily could have her dream. Now sitting in the car, I looked at the old photo now covered in dust. It was a picture of Lily at 10 years old, smiling brightly at a ballet performance, and I was standing behind, my face tired from so many sleepless nights, but happy. I used to think my love would be enough for her to cherish me. But today, I feel betrayed, and worse, I blame myself. Maybe I wasn't good enough for her. The pain doesn't just come from being left out of the wedding, but from realizing that I let Lily take too much, not just money, but my self-respect. In the silent apartment, I opened my laptop, checked my bank account to review the wedding expenses. But what I found wasn't just numbers. It was proof of blatant exploitation, transactions I never authorized, and a text message between Lily and her best friend that made my heart stop. "Just let my mom take care of it. She's an automatic ATM." The sharp words kept echoing in my head. I wasn't just being left out of my daughter's wedding, but being seen as a wallet, a tool for Lily to build her fairy tale dream. That night, I decided to take back control of everything, not with tears or resentment, but with action. I would break the perfect story Lily had built and let her feel the pain of being abandoned by a loved one. I sat on the old wooden chair with old paint peeling off to reveal the rough wood underneath. In the living room, a cup of cold coffee next to me. I was wearing an old t-shirt, my hair tied up high, feeling like a warrior preparing for the final battle. In front of me was a laptop, opening the email page and a list of phone numbers of wedding service providers. I took a deep breath, my hands no longer shaking as when I stood in front of the Coastal Grand Hotel gate. First, I called the catering company. The manager, a woman with a slightly surprised voice, answered. "Hello, this is Coastal Catering. How can I help you?" I said, my voice cold but polite. "I am Savannah Bennett, the one who ordered the dinner party for Lily Bennett's wedding at B. Coastal Grand. I want to cancel the entire service starting now." There was a silence, then she stammered. "But, ma'am, the dinner party starts in 3 hours. Are you sure?" I replied without hesitation. "Certainly. Please confirm the cancellation and do not send any additional invoices." I heard her typing, then a sigh. "Cancelled, ma'am." I hung up, feeling like I had just untied a knot in my chest. Next was the jazz band. I called the band manager, an old man with a deep voice. "Mrs. Bennett, "Is there a problem with tonight's performance?" I said, "There is no problem. I just want to cancel. We don't need a band anymore." He tried to persuade, "But we are ready, and the contract—" I interrupted. "The contract was signed by me, and I am canceling it. Please leave before 7 p.m. I hung up before he could say anything else. My hands were still steady, not shaking at all. Then came the bar. The person in charge was a young man, his voice worried. "You want to cancel the bar, but we have already delivered the wine to the hotel." I replied, "I understand, but I don't need the service anymore. Please withdraw, everything, including the special cocktails." I heard him mumble something, but I didn't care. Finally, I called the flower shop. "Cancel all flower decorations for the dinner party," I told the florist, my voice as calm as if I were ordering coffee, "including the flower arch in the main hall." The woman on the other end of the line gasped, "Mrs. Bennett, half of the flowers have already been delivered." I replied, "Then take them away. I won't pay another penny." I hung up, and for the first time that night I felt so relieved, not because I was happy, but because I felt like I was getting myself back. But I didn't stop. I opened my email, composing a letter to Savannah Morning News, a local newspaper, famous for its controversial articles. Title: "The Truth About the Extravagant Wedding at Coastal Grand." In the email, I attached a detailed breakdown of expenses: a $3,500 spa bill for the bridesmaids, $5,000 for the pre-wedding photo shoot, $8,000 for Lily's wedding dress, and over $30,000 that I paid. I also sent a copy of Lily's message. "Just let Mom pay. She owes me a lifetime." I wrote, "I request that my identity be kept confidential, but I want the public to know the truth about what is behind this fairy tale dream." I pressed send, and a rush of adrenaline ran through me, as if I had just dropped a bomb. Less than 10 minutes later, my phone started ringing nonstop. Lily's name flashed on the screen, once, then twice, then 10 times. I didn't need to open the machine. I knew what the content behind those rings was. The first message came as quickly as a reflex. "Mom, why was the dinner party cancelled? Why are you ruining this ceremony? Mom, seriously, this is not funny." James: "I don't understand what's going on. Are you okay? Please answer. This is so childish." I chuckled. Just a puff of air through my nose. Childish. I opened the banking app again. My fingers moved with the practiced inertia of someone who has balanced checkbooks every Sunday for 3 decades. The fees were still there, unauthorized, arrogant. The groom, my new son-in-law, he even took my card without asking, to pay for the pre-wedding bar party and a day of golf, spa with his group of groomsmen. Every detail was clear in the statement: expensive wine, full-body massage, package, VIP room rental at the resort, fancy dinner for the whole group, all charged to my bill. And then an expense made me gasp. $3,200 at a high-end fashion store. Noted dress and accessories for Mrs. Margaret. James's mother, who stood next to Lily at the wedding, smug as if she paid, while I, the biological mother, was pushed out like a stranger. In total, more than $18,000 was withdrawn without my knowledge. No one said anything to me. No one asked permission. They just took the liberty of trampling on my sweat and hard work. The belief that I had carried in my chest like an old blanket, warm, familiar, felt torn apart as if someone had used scissors to cut it while I was sleeping. I got up, walked to the mirror in the living room. My face was gaunt, as if I had aged 10 years in just one night. My eyes were red, but there were no tears. I whispered to myself, I gave her everything, and this is how she repays me. I thought about the speeches at the wedding, when James's parents praised Lily as a second child, without mentioning me even once. I thought about Mrs. Margaret, wearing a gorgeous dress bought with my money, standing next to Lily as if she were her biological mother. The betrayal came not only from Lily, but from the way she let others erase me from her story. From heartache, I moved to outrage. I realized I wasn't just being left out of the wedding, but being exploited in a calculated way. Lily didn't, accidentally, forget to invite me. She planned for me to pay, for her mother-in-law to shine, for me to stand outside the gate like an outsider. But this outrage didn't make me want to cry or scream. I imagined the chaos at the Coastal Grand Hotel, where just hours before I'd stood outside the gates, listening to the violins and the laughter of guests at the party. Now, I pictured bewildered guests, standing awkwardly in the ballroom as staff announced the dinner reception was cancelled. The tables covered in white silk, once adorned with floating candles and baby's breath, were now bare, devoid of appetizers and champagne. The jazz band, which should have been playing love songs, had packed up their instruments and left, leaving behind a silent stage. The bar, with the signature cocktails Lily had insisted on, closed early, leaving only a few lonely bottles behind. The hydrangea and vine archway in the main hall, the symbol of Lily and James forever, was being dismantled amidst the whispers of the guests. I heard that Lily and James, the groom, tried to pay themselves to salvage the situation, but their budget wasn't enough. A hotel employee recounted that they argued publicly in front of the guests, Lily sobbing uncontrollably and James shouting, "What the hell has your mother done? Didn't you know this would happen?" The next morning, the Savannah Morning News published the article I sent with the headline, "Extravagant Wedding, Who Really Paid the Price?" The article exposed the detailed costs: $12,500 for the bridesmaids' spa treatments, $5,000 for the pre-wedding photo shoot, $8,000 for the wedding dress, and over $30,000 in other expenses, all from my credit card. They quoted Lily's text message, "Just let Mom pay, she owes me a lifetime," and called it evidence of ingratitude. The article spread like wildfire on social media. On Twitter, the hashtag Dear Ungrateful Bride emerged. Hundreds of comments appeared under the article, and my hands trembled slightly as I read them. This mother paid her whole life and was treated like a stranger. So heartbreaking. If I were her mother, I wouldn't just cancel the party. I'd make her pay back every penny. Lily Bennett, you should be ashamed not wearing a wedding dress. But not everyone was angry. A few people tried to defend her. Parents give birth to children, so they have to take care of them. Don't dig up dirt behind their backs. Maybe the bride has her own reasons who post family matters in the newspaper. I read those comments on my phone, neither happy nor sad, just feeling a confirmation. I wasn't alone in this pain. But the storm of criticism didn't stop at social media. James's mother, Mrs. Margaret, sent a long email, her tone arrogant. "Your actions have caused serious reputational damage to our family. We are considering suing you for sabotaging the event. You should be ashamed of what you are doing." I imagined her in her sparkling sequin dress, how her face must have looked when the dinner reception was cancelled, but I didn't reply. I didn't need to explain myself to people who had never seen me cleaning hospital floors until 2 a.m. to raise Lily. For the first time in my life, I felt I deserved respect, not to be a tool for others to exploit. The years I worked so hard, the times Lily demanded money, from the $90 Nike shoes when she was 8 to the $500 for the university club, now appeared as a chain of evidence that I had given too much. I went straight to the bedroom, opened the closet, took out the red file folder, and sat on the bed. At the bottom of the stack of papers, beneath old insurance documents and a few photos I hadn't seen in years, was a letter, the existence of which I had never known. As I held the yellowed envelope in my hand, my heart beat faster, as if sensing a secret that had been buried for too long. I opened the envelope carefully as if afraid of tearing what was inside. Richard's handwriting, slanted and familiar, appeared. "Savannah, I know you don't want to hear anything from me anymore, but I have to tell the truth before it's too late." I felt my pulse quicken, my hands trembling slightly. "I'm about to take a secret that I cannot take to the grave." I took a deep breath, and then each line stabbed at my heart. Richard wrote that Lily was the daughter of his ex-girlfriend from before we were married. He had lied to me that he had found Lily in front of the house to make me believe that she was a gift from God. I stopped breathing for a moment. Memories flooded back, sharp and painful. 27 years ago, I had a miscarriage, losing my first child, and the doctor said I couldn't get pregnant again. I cried for months, feeling like an empty shell. Then Richard brought Lily home, a baby girl, saying that she had been abandoned in front of the house. I looked into Lily's clear eyes, and my heart melted. I thought, maybe my ill-fated child has returned in a different way. I treated Lily as my own daughter, as a gift from God to heal my wounds. But now, this letter said that it was all a lie from Richard. He hid the truth all his life, to let me raise a child who was not my blood. I clenched the letter, but didn't scream, didn't get angry. My eyes were dry, only a strange silence enveloped me. I looked out the window, seeing the faint moonlight in the Savannah sky, as if it were witnessing the moment I faced the truth. I remembered the sleepless nights when Lily had a high fever. I hugged her, singing lullabies even though my voice was hoarse with fatigue. I remembered the times I worked overtime at the hospital until 2 a.m. to buy ballet shoes for Lily's first performance. I remembered the moment Lily called me Mama for the first time, when she was 2 years old, and I cried with happiness, thinking that my love was enough to overcome all pain. Those memories now became bitter, but also made me realize the strength of the unconditional love I had given Lily. Richard's letter was full of remorse, but I only saw cowardice. He wrote, "I wasn't brave enough to tell the truth. You are the only one who could love Lily as your own daughter." But that truth didn't make me feel comforted. It made me realize I had lived for a lie, sacrificing my whole life for a child who wasn't mine, only to have her push me out of her wedding, exploiting me as a mobile wallet. Lily's text messages with her friend kept echoing in my head. "Just let Mom take care of it. She's an automatic ATM." And the $3,200 for Mrs. Margaret's dress, her mother-in-law. The betrayal was now even deeper, like a cut that wouldn't stop, bleeding. But instead of collapsing, I felt a strange liberation. I whispered to myself, I loved her even though she wasn't mine, and I still fulfilled my responsibility as a mother. But now, I don't have to anymore. This secret, though painful, severed the invisible cord that bound me to the imposed role of mother. I no longer had to live to prove my love for Lily, no longer had to sacrifice to earn recognition. I had the right to choose my life again, and this time I would choose myself. I put the letter down on the bed, not folding it as if it lay there, as a reminder of my new strength. I got up, walked to the window, feeling the cool air after the rain. I thought about what had happened at the Coastal Grand, the violins, Mrs. Margaret's smile, and the chaos when I canceled the services. And then I started to learn how to slow down, to begin accepting that not everything I gave would be reciprocated. A few days passed and the small house returned to its familiar rhythm. The sound of the kettle boiling, the faint smell of coffee in the morning, the sunlight filtering through the trees by the kitchen. I started to rearrange everything, as if personally cleaning up the pile of rubble that I didn't drop, but still had to pick up. Then, one afternoon as ordinary as any other, as I was folding the freshly laundered tablecloths, a knock came at the door. Slow, 3 taps, hesitant, not a delivery, not a neighbor. I opened the door, and standing in front of me was Richard, looking more haggard than I remembered. A rumpled gray suit, disheveled gray hair, red eyes as if he had just cried. "Savannah, how are you?" he said, his voice hoarse, as brazen as if we had only been apart for a few weeks. "You're still my safe harbor after all these years, right? I was lost, but now I know you're the only real thing." I stood still, gripping the door, the memory of the day he left me and Lily, 3 years old, running off with his mistress and leaving behind a pile of bills flooding back. But more than that, the secret he had kept all his life. Lily wasn't my daughter, but the daughter of his ex-girlfriend. His audacity stunned me, but I kept my voice cold. "What do you want, Richard?" Before he could answer, I stepped forward, pointing to the letter on the bed, my voice trembling with suppressed anger. "Before you say anything about safe harbors or reconciliation, explain this. You lied to me about Lily. You said she was abandoned in front of the house, but she's the daughter of your ex-girlfriend. I raised Lily for 27 years, loving her as my own daughter without knowing the truth. You think I'll forgive that lie?" Richard turned pale, stammering. "Savannah, I didn't want to hurt you. I thought you wouldn't accept it if you knew the truth," I interrupted, my voice deep but sharp. "Didn't want to hurt me. You let me live with a lie, to sacrifice my whole life for your and her child without explaining." He lowered his head, not daring to look at me, but I didn't stop. "I believed Lily was a gift from God after losing my own child. But you stole my truth." Richard mumbled. He knelt down at my feet like a beggar with nothing left to lose. "I have nothing left you. She left me, spent all my money and kicked me out. I was wrong. I have nothing left you. Can't you be so cruel as to turn your back on the person who used to be your whole world?" I laughed dryly, not because I was happy, but because of the absurdity of the plea. I invited him in, not because I wanted to, but to hear the end of this charade. He sat in the old armchair, his hands clasped tightly, continuing. "I realize now that you are the only real family. Give me a chance to start over with you." I looked into those desperate eyes, not seeing love, only a man who had lost everything and wanted to find a pillar to lean on like a parasite. I remembered the long nights of working hard nonstop, paying off the joint debts that Richard left behind. I remembered Lily crying for her father, and I hugged her, saying, "Mom is here. Don't be afraid, honey." Richard had no right to return, not after all this. "Richard," I said, my voice calm but deep, "you left me and Lily when I needed you most. I learned to live alone, and I don't need you to do it again." He interrupted, but I continued. "My world used to have you, but now it's just me, and I like it better this way." Richard's face stiffened, then turned angry. "Is that so, Savannah?" he shouted, his greedy voice revealed. It seemed that his fake play was coming to an end. "Do you think she can keep this apartment forever? Half is mine. We will go to court if you don't agree to split it." I was stunned, not believing he dared to demand after abandoning us. "You live comfortably like this while I'm penniless?" he roared. "Where's the fairness, Savannah?" I stood up, facing him, my voice unwavering. "I paid for everything in this house, Richard, with sweat and sleepless nights. You have no part here." I took out my phone, quickly taking a picture of him, his face red with anger. "This apartment I bought after paying off all our joint debts. Debts you left behind when you left," I said. "Savings account? I have nothing after raising Lily alone. If you want to sue, sue, but I have documents to prove everything." Richard gaped, trying to say something, but I opened the door wide. "Go, Richard, and this time, never come back. I'm used to being alone, and I'm stronger than you think." Richard staggered out without saying another word, only leaving heavy footsteps in the hallway. I slammed the door shut, my breath even but my heart beating. fast with pride. I didn't tremble, didn't give in. I cooked dinner just for myself, a recipe I had seen once on a travel show. Lemon butter pasta with roasted cherry tomatoes and garlic. No chicken nuggets, no side dish of macaroni and cheese, just what I wanted. I lit a candle while eating, turned on soft jazz music, set the table for one. It was quiet, but not empty. It was the sound of reclaiming something I hadn't realized. I had lost. The guest list began with silence. No glitter pens, no gold-edged paper, just a yellow-lined notebook and the sound of my pen scratching on it. I wrote the names one by one, not the people I had to invite, the people I wanted. Claire, my old friend from the emergency room, who used to sneak cups of coffee into my locker when I worked double shifts. Mr. Henderson, the neighbor next door. To my house, who always cleared the snow on my driveway before I could get out there. Dana from the bookstore I visited every Sunday, who always asked about my week and really listened. Nurse Janet, who had once stayed late on her birthday to help me with a case. No one shared blood with me, but each of them had made me feel seen in a way that my daughter never had. And that was the new theme, the people who saw me. It wasn't a wedding, not a holiday, just a dinner at my house with my food on my table. No folding chairs, no back kitchen. I spent the following week preparing for my small dinner, not because I needed to impress anyone, not to prove I had moved on, and certainly not to elicit regret from those who had turned their backs. I did all those things because I wanted to. For the first time in years, I wasn't preparing something for someone else. Not Lily's birthday, not Thanksgiving with Richard's family, not the parent-teacher conferences where I had to be the backdrop for someone else to be praised. This dinner was a gentle invitation that I sent to myself, that joy doesn't need a reason and I deserve it too. I went to the market with a small handwritten piece of paper, not in a hurry, not flustered like the days of shopping for family parties. I chose each sprig of fresh basil, separated each fragrant clove of garlic, carefully selected the plump and golden red heirloom tomatoes, round like a thank you from the earth. There were no frozen trays in my cart this time, no convenient things to finish the meal. I even went around to the fabric area where I saw a blue tablecloth with hand-embroidered sunflowers. I touched it and laughed. It reminded me of my 20-year-old version, who used to love impromptu, bright things, not afraid of being ridiculous. A version that hadn't been burdened by life with so many must be like this, must be like that, to the point of forgetting what she liked. On the morning of the dinner, I woke up early, opened all the curtains, turned on all the lights, turned the music up louder than usual. Van Morrison, Stevie Nicks, Norah Jones, soft melodies like wool, making me feel like I was moving in a rhythm that was no longer sad. My house smelled of garlic fried in olive oil, with a little lemon zest mixed in the air, making the kitchen warm as if I myself was being healed. I wasn't in a hurry. I cooked because I liked to cook, and because, for the first time, I knew I would be eating with people who truly loved me, not because of obligation, but because of affection. The first guest arrived just before 6 o'clock. It was Claire, still with the bright smile like the first time I met her in the emergency room, holding a bottle of red wine and sparkling eyes. "Savannah, you look really beautiful." I had done my hair, but not elaborately. The gray and silver hair was left natural, touching my shoulders lightly. I was wearing a cream-colored linen blouse, no Spanx, no foundation, no mascara. I was just me, with skin weathered by the wind, with eyes that had been wet from too many sleepless nights, and a heart that had now learned to be gentle with itself. The other guests arrived one by one. No one knocked cautiously. No one awkwardly looked for a seat. They came as if they knew for sure that they were welcome. The hugs were longer than usual. Wine was poured without asking, "Should I?" The first laugh rang out from Dina when she recounted being bitten by a cat in the bookstore. and from there was a series of laughter that didn't need permission. We ate on the table that used to be used to fold clothes, to help Lily with third grade math. Now it was no longer a place of responsibility. It became a banquet table, simple, sincere, and warm. Plates of food were passed around, the clinking of forks touching porcelain plates. Fabric napkins folded into fan shapes were now lying lazily in someone's palm. No one checked their phone. No one whispered something behind someone else's back. Everyone was present, really present, and me, I was also present there, not behind the curtain. Not standing quietly in the kitchen, not a shadow in someone else's party. I also laughed. Not a polite, forced smile, not the kind of laugh I used to use to appease others, but a real laugh, loud, deep, overflowing from the chest to the throat like a released sigh. Someone recounted a bad date where her ex-boyfriend forgot her name and even called her by his ex-girlfriend's name. The whole table burst into laughter. Another person, I guess it was Clara, confessed that she had secretly taken a pen from the bank every week because the logo was so ugly and I felt it needed to disappear. Laughter burst out again, as natural as breathing. No one was pretending. No one was wary. Between dessert and the last plates of brownies being divided, I suddenly stopped, still holding the fork with a trace of lemon cream left. Something quietly crashed down on my heart, not loudly but surely, like the sound of the house door closing decisively after the wind. I looked around, faces that didn't share blood. None of them were family in the traditional sense, but the way they looked at me was gentler than anyone in the blood gatherings I had to quietly stand behind, and I realized this is family. Not the people I was born with, but the people I chose. The people who chose to stay when I had nothing left to give, except myself. I didn't feel abandoned. I didn't feel like I was standing on the edge of a group photo. I wasn't the one behind the lens, straining to create a beautiful moment for others. I sat right at the table like everyone else. I was no longer small, not controlled, not hidden. I felt alive, right now. Not tomorrow will be okay, not sometime, but right here, amid the random stories, the sound of spoons touching plates, the sound of wine being poured and someone's sleeve accidentally touching me in an affectionate handshake. Near the end of the evening, when everyone had leaned back to relax, the string lights on the porch cast a warm light on the table like summer moonlight. Claire raised her glass. She stood up, her eyes sparkling, her voice not trembling. Because Savannah is the kind of woman who reminds us that it's never too late to step up to the head of the table, to sit in our own lives, to say, enough, now it's my turn. The whole table fell into a silent moment. Then each glass of wine was raised, touching each other. Not noisy, but full of sincerity. I also raised my glass, and when I spoke, my voice was not lost, not trembling. Only the calmness of someone who had finally found herself after years of being immersed in nameless roles. Cheers, because finally I have been seen. A week after the warm gathering at my apartment, where the laughter of Clara, Mr. Henderson, and Dina echoed, I felt a shift within me. The party with my genuine friends had given me the strength to live for myself, but I knew the healing journey wasn't over. One afternoon, as the Savannah sun streamed through the window, a knock came at the door. I opened it, and there was Lily standing before me, demanding explanations and apologies. But I no longer wanted to play the role of mother as I had for so many years. Lily stood there, wearing a gray hoodie, her hair disheveled, lacking the elegance of the bride in the $8,000 dress I'd paid for. "Mom," she said, her voice trembling but still tinged with reproach, "I didn't mean to hurt you. I just wanted everything to be perfect. Can I come in and talk?" I looked into her eyes, once my light when she was a 3-year-old snuggling in my arms, but now I only saw excuses. I invited her in, not because I wanted to forgive, but because I needed to end this one-sided mother-daughter relationship. She sat on the old armchair, her hands clasped tightly, continuing, "I didn't think you'd be upset about the seating arrangement. I just wanted it to be a perfect wedding, you understand, right?" I stood still, feeling like I was hearing her callous text message again. I walked to the bookshelf, took out a small box containing the wedding expense receipts. $1,500 for the bridesmaid's spa, $5,000 for the pre-wedding photo shoot, $3,200 for the mother-in-law's dress, and a copy of Richard's letter. I placed the box in front of Lily, my voice calm but sharp. "You've lived too selfishly. It seems you don't understand that I gave you all the best things. I loved you even though you weren't my biological child. But you chose to push me out, to leave me standing outside the gate like a stranger." Lily looked up, her eyes welling with tears, stammering, "Mom, I didn't know about the letter." I interrupted, my voice deep. "I understand, Lily. But you don't understand how much I sacrificed. From the nights working to exhaustion, selling my wedding ring, to paying off your father's debts. You used my money to buy a dress for your mother-in-law, then called me a mobile wallet. That's something I can't forgive." Lily burst into tears, trying to excuse herself. "I didn't mean to, Mom. I just wanted everything to be smooth. Can't you forgive me?" I looked at her, tears falling but not swaying me. I saw Lily to the door. She was still crying, but I didn't look back. "Mom, I'm sorry," she whispered, but I only nodded, closed the door, feeling like I was shedding a burden. The apartment became quiet again, only the ticking of the clock. I walked to the bookshelf, took down the old photo of me and Lily. Her at 10 years old at her ballet performance, me standing behind, tired but happy. I removed all the mementos, Lily's graduation diploma, the drawing she gave me when she was 5. I opened my phone, deleted her contact information, gradually clearing away the traces of the role of a mother who has sacrificed for years. When I opened the kitchen cabinet to put away groceries. I saw the box of cereal Lily liked and suddenly realized I didn't remember what my favorite cereal was. I had lived for others for too long, to the point of forgetting myself. I stood up, the sunlight streaming through the window, illuminating the lemon-yellow tablecloth. I knew my healing journey wasn't over. I walked along the small street behind my house. The smell of dewy grass and the sound of my shoes tapping lightly on the pavement reminded me of my youth, when I used to walk slowly towards my house, dreaming of a future full of laughter and warm embraces. Now I no longer dreamed, but for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel empty. As I turned to go inside, I spotted a paper envelope neatly placed in the crack of the door. Without looking closely, I knew it was Richard's. Handwriting, still slanted, slightly shaky like the man himself. Never straightforward, always evasive. I didn't open the letter immediately. I made a cup of tea, added a slice of fresh lemon, then took the letter with me to the living room. I sat down, on the floor, in the same spot where Lily and I used to make Christmas cards, color, fold paper cranes, and tell each other our secret wishes. I opened the envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter nearly 3 pages long. The title was short, "Savannah, the last truth I owe you." I read slowly, and each word, each line fell like the last drops overflowing from a glass. Richard confessed that Lily wasn't just the daughter of his ex-lover. She, that woman, had abandoned the baby at the hospital immediately after giving birth. No hug, no name, leaving nothing but a birth certificate that wasn't filled in. Richard, in his confusion and fear, had taken the baby home, quietly carrying her into the married life he knew he had betrayed. "I couldn't abandon her," he wrote. "I knew she was my blood, but I was also afraid you would leave if you knew. I wasn't brave enough to face it, so I let you raise her without a word of explanation. I sat in silence. There was no collapse in my head, no trembling anger, just an expanding emptiness, not dark, not painful, as if I had finally reached the deepest part of the truth. I folded the letter, placed it on my lap, and whispered, I loved a child who didn't belong to me, and I fulfilled everything of a mother. But now, I choose my life. I was no longer the deceived mother. I was the woman who had embraced a child, abandoned by both her biological parents, and loved her as if she were my own flesh and blood. I remembered a rainy afternoon when Lily was in 4th grade. She rushed into the house, her face smeared with tears. Her friends teased her, saying she didn't look like her mother, calling me adoptive mother, saying she was weird. Lily trembled, her eyes red, asking me, Mom, am I a mistake? I hugged her tightly, stroking her tangled hair. No, you are a miracle. The most beautiful thing I've ever had in my life. I wasn't lying. And now I was even more certain. The love I gave was never wrong, even if it started from a hidden truth. I got up, took the letter to the kitchen, not stuffing it in a drawer, not hiding it under the bottom of an old mailbox. I placed it right in the middle of the table, where the soft yellow light shone down, where over the years I had used to prepare every meal for Lily, every cup of tea in the middle of the night, for myself. I left the letter there as a declaration. I was no longer afraid of the truth. I didn't need to hide, didn't need to cover up, because if the truth was a fire, then I was the one who had walked through it without burning. I looked around the house, every corner imprinted with years of being a mother, a wife, a person keeping this home from falling apart. I saw the chair Lily used to sit in to study, the shelf where we arranged fairy tale books, the corner of the kitchen where I taught her to cook her first scrambled eggs. I didn't cry. I smiled, lightly, very lightly, not because of happiness, but because I was proud. Not everyone can love a child who is not their own blood so much. Not everyone is brave enough to go all the way with empty hands and a heart full of cracks. I did it, and I loved completely. But now, I chose to step back, not because of hurt, but because I deserved to live for myself. I was no longer the chosen mother. I was the woman who chose to love, and also chose to let go when the time came. I made myself a new cup of tea, sat under the porch light. A gentle breeze blew through my hair, through my palms, through my memories. Not cold, just cool, like the first autumn morning after a drought. I closed my eyes, feeling my chest no longer heavy. No longer trying to hold on to the past, clinging to titles, holding on to roles. I didn't need to be a mother, didn't need to be a wife. I just needed to be me, the woman who had gone to the end of her kindness and now returned to that very heart. Thank you for loving, I whispered, and thank you for being hurt enough to know how to let go. I opened my eyes, seeing the sky higher than ever. Not bright, but not dark. Not magical, but clear enough for me to know that I was ready to write the next chapter. Not for anyone, but for myself. A month later, my life returned to the most beautiful days. The bird song and the early morning sunlight made me smile. I was no longer the forgotten mother, but a free woman living fully and happily. That morning, Clara called, her voice full of excitement. "Savannah, have you heard the news? Lily has left her husband's family." I stopped sipping my coffee, listening. Clara said that after the wedding party was cancelled, James's family began to look down on Lily, mocking her as the girl with the worthless mother. Lily's mother-in-law, Mrs. Margaret, often insulted her, saying that she wasn't worthy of James because her mother ruined the whole wedding. The pressure and contempt made Lily unbearable, finally leaving the family she once thought was good. I was silent, neither angry nor happy. I thought about how she pushed me out of the wedding. I didn't expect her to come back. I just hoped she learned something as I had learned. Self-worth doesn't lie in the recognition of others. I got up, went inside, took out my diary and wrote, "I used to be Lily's mother. Now I'm Savannah, and that's enough." The lines reflected my journey, from the nights working hard, sleeping 4 hours to pay for Lily's college tuition, to the moment I discovered the $20,500 transaction for the bridesmaid's spa and $5,000 for the pre-wedding photo shoot. I remembered Richard's first letter, revealing Lily was the daughter of his ex-lover, and the second letter, found at the door, confirming she had been abandoned by her biological mother. I remembered the healing party where Clara raised her glass, for Savannah, who chose herself, and the final confrontation with Lily when I said, "I used to live for you, now I live for me." Each step had led me here, where I found peace. I had changed. I signed up for a painting class, holding a brush for the first time in 30 years, feeling the joy as colors spread on paper. I read non-fiction books, those about history and psychology, expanding the world I had narrowed because of Lily. I planned to travel alone to Charleston, where I would stroll the old streets and dine by the sea. Last week, I bought a red dress, a color I had never dared to wear because I thought it was too flashy. And when I tried it on, I smiled in the mirror, seeing a confident woman, no longer someone's shadow. My story didn't stop at this apartment. After the article, I started a blog called The Invisible Mother, sharing my journey. A week ago, I received an email from a reader. "Dear Savannah, your story made me dare to stand up after being neglected by my family. Thank you." I smiled, feeling I had found a new purpose, not only living for myself, but also inspiring other women, mothers, who had stood on the sidelines like me. I thought about the bouquet Clara brought, about Mr. Jenkins' laughter and Rosie's warm eyes. They were my real family. No blood needed, just respect and love. I stepped out onto the porch, the sunlight shining on the roses, as radiant as my new life. I thought about Lily, not angry, but not waiting either. I thought about Richard, about his lies and how I had overcome them. I was no longer the sacrificing mother, standing outside the coastal Grand Gate, or the woman who forgot her favorite cereal. I was Savannah, and I was full of hope. The birdsong rang out, and I knew, even though this journey had ended, a new chapter was beginning. Rebirth is not about erasing the past, but about choosing to live for yourself. I had learned that self-worth doesn't need recognition from others, but comes from daring to stand up and love your life. My journey from pain to freedom is proof that it's never too late to start over. As I sipped my coffee, watching the roses bloom, I knew my story wasn't just my own. It belonged to every woman who had been pushed out, who had sacrificed too much, and was finding her way back to herself. I put down my coffee cup, picked up my pen, and began to write a new page in my diary. The free woman ready to live, each day to the fullest. If this story touched you, please subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next emotional journeys. Stay tuned to follow with me the deep, emotional, and no less satisfying revenge stories in the next episodes.